Hello and welcome to the Property Lifestyle Mastery podcast. This is Jackie Tomes, and this podcast is all about building a property business that creates freedom, whether that's financial freedom, time freedom, location freedom. It's all about making sure your property business ultimately takes you to where you want to go. So we've been there and done that and have experienced the highs and the lows and had a lot of lessons along the way. So that's what this podcast is all about. And today we are delving into abundance and the difference between abundance and lack and what that means for your mindset. And we're bringing this all into what that means from a raising finance perspective and how difficult it is to raise finance if you're in a state of lack, and how much easier it is if you can shift your mindset now rather than waiting for the end result of the financial side of things to come through to feel good. So this is myself and Dom today. You're really going to love this one. So without further ado, let's do this. Hello, Dom.
Hello, Jackie.
I'm excited about this conversation today. We are talking about what's really like abundance versus lack, and particularly thinking about it in relation to raising finance, because I think so often we see people struggling to raise finance and they're so worried about money themselves that actually that ability to go and raise finance when you're worried about money and feeling lack financially is really, really hard to do. And so I want to just have a conversation about this today. Like, why is it hard to raise finance if you're in a place of lack? And equally, why is it hard to build cash flow in property when you're in a place of lack? And how do you get out of a place of lack and to a place of feeling abundant without being dependent on the external factors of what's going on in your business and in the world, to be able to raise finance more easily, build cash flow more easily? Like, how do we do all of that? Have I defined that clearly enough?
Yes, yeah. And I think it starts with awareness, which we always talk about, but a lot of people aren't even aware about how they think about money. So the first place is to start with, okay, how do I feel about money? How do I feel about, am I open to spending money on, some people, they don't like spending money. They don't like going out for dinner because it costs them a fortune. They don't like buying coffee out because they can make it cheaper at home. There's that sense, that feeling of, I don't like spending money. I don't like, and they've, that projection that they're kind of sending out to the world is that there is a lack, that there isn't enough to go around. Therefore, I have to save, I have to keep what I've got and be very frugal and everything like that. And so that awareness of self and how we think about money is the first step. I think we need to start there, is like, how do we think about money? How do we feel when we spend? Is it always like, I'm losing money here, or is it a fair exchange? Because I've read many, many, many books on finance and abundance, and my conclusion is 80% of it is entirely emotional. It's about how we feel about money. And if we're feeling like, oh, I feel bad asking for money, then you're not going to get it. It just doesn't happen that way, does it?
Well, it's crazy because and for me, like the whole like manifesting, attracting abundance thing, like it never really resonated with me. I was like, oh, it's a bit of a load of woo-woo crap, basically. But actually, when you start to look at it through a very scientific lens, it's pretty obvious. Like, basically, how we feel about the world, we basically look for proof that we are right, because as humans we want to be right about things, and we want to have proof that we're making the right choices. So for example, if you choose to go and buy yourself a nice new Audi A5 in white, suddenly you'll see Audi white A5s everywhere, because that is what you are focusing on, because what you focus on becomes your reality. Because really there's a whole load of crap going on in the world that we can't even see, because it's all being filtered through the lens of what we're actually looking for, and we're looking for the world to prove that we are making the right decision, and basically life will prove to us that what we believe is correct. So therefore, if you believe that there's not enough money, that's all you'll see, because you're missing all of the millions and billions of opportunities to see that it's abundant. Like, life is abundant. There is so much money out there, and you can go and get access to it, create more of it. But if you don't believe it, you won't even see it. And I think that, for me, Now I've, this, I think Dave's much better at explaining all of the sciencey stuff behind it. That's probably the best explanation that I can give. And now whatever I choose to believe is actually what is real. So that's where, for me, it really starts to go, do I want to choose to feel abundant, or do I want to choose to feel poor?
Right. Because the golden rule of the universe is whatever you hold in mind has to become a reality. If you hold it in mind on a regular basis and that's all you think about, then it's a vibration. Everything is in the universe is a energy, is measured as a frequency, as a vibration. So if you hold that thought in mind about lack or abundance, the opposite end, then that's what you will attract more of. So that's ultimately is law of physics. It's actually been known for decades. So that's really important that we start to think, not just think, but also feel in line with raising finance or seeing the money that is all around us. Because here's the thing, money is just a form of energy, right? And the bank, this is about 20 years ago now, but I remember someone saying, and he was in finance, he said, for every £1,000 in a bank, they can lend six. It's like, well, where does the other five come from then? And it's like they magic it out of the computer system and go, well, if we've got this amount in the bank, we can lend this amount. And this is why the financial crisis happened. It's like all this money doesn't exist. It's just they make it up. And that's why, as long as you have a big enough reason for people to want to lend, in the case of like mortgages or loans and other things, where they see value in something else, then they are willing to put money into that, knowing that interest is going to be paid back, and so their money is going to grow. But it is all just an idea. It's never actually real. It's just our thoughts and our feelings about it. It's just a number on a screen. It's just an extra zero at the end of a number. It's just, yeah. So it's not actually real. And so training ourselves to feel good about it and see the increase in value that we're creating for people, and for businesses is where the magic happens.
So true. And I think I kind of want to do a whole podcast episode on that topic at some point, but let's just go there for a minute. It's so true. Like, when you're focused on lack, you are worried about yourself and what you don't have. And if you're so worried about what your problems and what you don't have, what are you not doing? Focusing on serving the other person. And in order to raise finance and be able to create more wealth in your own life, the biggest measure of that is the level of service that you are bringing to other people. So therefore, you've got to stop thinking about yourself and start looking at those people that you want to serve, your potential investors, and go, what are their problems? Let
Yes.
me really understand what's making them tick and the problems and the obstacles in their way. And there'll be very different problems and obstacles to yourself. And that's great, because then two different people come together to create a great solution. But if you can't get out of your own way to focus on the fact that this person's got way too much money in the bank, so much that it's an actual problem, like, you've got to understand that problem and what value that person is looking for, and find a way to create it and serve that person. And then automatically, by doing that, you get out of your own way, you provide a valuable solution, and therefore people want to work with you, and so therefore you start to attract abundance.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Because people are always focused on themselves, but actually, the more we focus on others and helping them and solving their problem, that's when money starts to flow. But people are so obsessed with what other people will think, or the fear of loss, or what might go wrong. Guess what? That's what they attract more of, rather than actually focus on solving someone else's problem. That's what businesses do. That's ultimately what every business does. It's there to solve a problem. So focus on solving someone's problem, and that's when money will flow to you far better. So yeah, absolutely.
And it's much easier to do all of that from this. I think this, getting from this place of lack, if you're in this financial lack, the idea of getting to a place of feeling abundant just feels like, I don't know, it's like a real gulf away. And I think, I don't know, there is partly a bit of a problem with, well, most people listening are probably in the UK or got close associations with the UK. Like, it's more and more a quite materialist society where we're all chasing after more, climbing the ladder in whatever career means you're never it's never good enough where you are. It's always that you want to climb to another level. There's always another level of car, another level of house. And once you've got the best house, you can get a boat, then you can get a plane, then you can get a bigger plane. Like there's just always more. And actually, I definitely myself a few years ago just kind of started to realize within myself, I'm like, what is the point of all of this? Like it's always about more money. And actually, somehow you make more money and then you spend more money and you hold yourself in the same level of financial,
Yeah.
I don't know, feeling, I suppose. And so therefore you basically, well, I was definitely preventing myself from feeling wealthy through how I was managing my finances. I was making more money, spending more money, and therefore it still felt like I just needed to keep going and going. And for us, it was one of the reasons that we kind of went, you know what, actually, we should get a motorhome. We should just like completely cut back on everything, because this chasing more is not it, because we're getting more, but it's not making us feel more abundant. And so that was a big like shift for us, was just going, if I can just be happy traveling around in a motorhome, then I'm already abundant. Like there isn't any more that is required. And that I think that process of going through that and actually pulling back to shift that feeling of abundance actually then has manifested so much more abundance, because in
Right.
the process it's just gone, how can I just enjoy this right here, right now? It doesn't need to be big and grand and expensive to be absolutely beautiful. And therefore, by that process of doing that, you find this whole new joy, which then manifests abundance. I don't know. That's been one of the ways that we've gone about doing
Yeah.
it.
And so the funny thing there is that by simplifying your life, by having less possessions, effectively, less outgoings, less things that actually hold you with handcuffs, going, oh no, you've got to keep paying this mortgage, you've got to keep paying this rent, you've got to keep paying this car installments, these loans that you've got to pay off. Actually, by releasing all of that, you've created more freedom, which is what people want. And as a result, you're more free, you're happier. And if you're happier, then you feel more abundant, you're feeling good. And guess what happens when you're feeling good? More of the same stuff, because of course we're a reflection of how we're feeling most of the time. So that's yeah, I love it. That's brilliant. And it makes me think of Warren Buffett. He said, most people make the mistake. They make more money and then they spend more money. And as a result, they're always in that loop, that rat race of I need to make more money, I need to make more money, I need to make more money. And guess what? They spend more and then they make more, and they spend more, and they never actually get to what they're really aiming for, if you're aware of it, which is to say freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of relationship, freedom of location, which you've got as well. So it's essential in a way, and it's why we work with people who love to feel fulfilled. And it's really about effectively the personal development side. The business is really the vehicle on which they actualize and become happier. And it's a reflection of them and where they're at. But the happier you are, the more abundant you feel, the easier it is to raise finance. It's like, yeah, the opposite of what people expect. These
It
unwritten
is.
rules that we tell ourselves. Mm.
It's and also people want to work with happy people, right? So like if you're just loving life, having a great time doing what you're doing, not focusing on what you don't have, you're basically putting out something totally different into the world, and people are attracted to that. And it for me it's just been like quite a magical process to kind of see all that unfold, to go from being in that place of, even though I should have felt financially abundant, not feeling financially abundant, finding the way to shift that perspective to realize, oh my God, I have like far more than I would ever need. And I'm totally happy where I am right now. Let's just carry on enjoying this process. And then because you're enjoying it, suddenly, oh my God, like it's like a different level of experience in terms of people that want to work with you, the opportunities that present themselves. Like I could never, I thought we were doing well a few years ago, but like that
Mm.
was just like,
Mm.
what would be the way of putting that? It's just like more of the normal route of like work hard, get
Mm.
results. Whereas I think with this, when you really start to just feel good and love what you're doing, and I feel fulfilled, as you're saying, yeah, it's you get what you want, and it feels like, I feel like sometimes like I'm cheating now. I'm like, this is too easy. Like this is just happening. Like I wasn't even thinking that I wanted that opportunity to come along. And oh my God, here it is. And it's like better than I ever imagined. That wouldn't have happened before when I was in that
Mm.
not feeling financially abundant.
Yeah. So what are some, for the listeners, some practical steps of how they can start shifting their mindset effectively from a sense of lack, which is potentially something they've grown up with? You know, an awful lot of our conditioning comes from our parent or our upbringing. And if our parents, and often they have been, you know, have struggled financially, then that tends to, recreate itself through us. So what are some practical steps that people can take away and start to implement in their lives that might help that abundant feeling?
Mm. So I would say that feeling of abundance is like it's a practice sensation. So
Mm,
like the feeling of lack is a habitual feeling of there not being enough. And
yes.
the reason you feel like that is because you've practiced it so much. So I
Yes.
mean a slight diversion before we come back to the practical point is the Dave decided to have a session with someone not so long ago. I won't name the person, but they were just never feeling like they had enough money, like always worrying about money. And you know, me and Dave are like, this person has plenty of money, like they shouldn't be worried about money, and being like really frugal, like not want to turn on the heating, buying value stuff in the supermarket, worried about going on holiday, like being really frugal. So they were like, look, this enough is enough. Let's sit down and figure out your financial situation. So Dave sat down with him because also the crazy thing was he felt like he didn't have enough money, but he actually didn't know how much money he had. Like no idea. Like it's not written down anywhere. So that's like a bit ironic in itself. So sat down, had a conversation, got everything written down, all of the different assets, investments, how much they were returning in terms of income. This person was worth over £1 million. £1 million net worth, and this person feels poor.
Yes.
And so that was great, and it was returning at like probably 8% on average was the return that was coming in from that £1 million.
So it's making
This,
or
yeah,
more.
it's really great income. And this is it's not even money that they need now. It's more of a retirement thing anyway. They've got another job that's earning them income, so it's like a future thing regardless. And they've them like decades away from retirement, so like they're in an incredible position. And so Dave laid all this out, and they was like, okay, great. So you're worth over £1 million. How do you feel about that? And the reaction was, oh God, well, now I better worry about making sure that I, invest it well and don't mess it up. Like the worry flipped immediately from there not being enough to a new worry, which was worrying about the fact that I might mess up this and lose it and not invest it well. So, like, really, what's going on here is it's not about the fact there's not enough money. It's not about the fact there's too much money. It's from what I can tell, an addiction to worry, and
Mm,
just money is the thing that's being pinned on.
right. Yes. Yeah. It's part of their personality to worry. And so whether it's money or something else, they're going to worry because worrying is their personality. It's part of who they are. They don't know how else to be. And that's why change doesn't necessarily happen instantly. It needs to be something that you practice and becomes a habit. And then once it's a habit, that's when you get the real change, and that's when you get the acceleration. It's like almost like a breakthrough. Sometimes you're doing it, you're doing the new habit for a long time. You're not seeing the results, not seeing the results for ages, and then suddenly there's a breakthrough, and that's because it's accumulated over time, and then there's a shift. But yeah, that's really interesting about this person. So yeah, spot that, listeners, in yourselves. What is your personality around finance and abundance and lack or not? Um, and what is holding you back? Because what is holding you back is yourself, of course, but it's the awareness, which is what we talk about a lot to erase it. So yeah,
And really, I feel like the feeling of worry, it's interesting because we'll never know how each other feels about worry, right? Like we've all decided what worry feels like, and that feels like worry to us. But what feels like worry to me might feel different to you, but that's just the name that we've given it. And then we all just like attach it to stuff
yeah,
in the world, and depending on our traumas, our history,
yeah,
as you say, our personality, that will define what it is that we attach that worry to.
yeah.
So for me, from like a practical perspective, it's like getting comfortable with that sensation of worry,
Yeah,
because I think it's something we don't want to feel like, oh, this feeling of worry comes up. And let's maybe define it. So, my feeling of worry is like like more of a tightening in the stomach, I suppose. Probably a shallowing of breath. Sometimes it can
Mm,
feel a little bit like the stomach wants to drop out a little bit if it's like, oh my God, that was a worry, something I should have been thinking about that I wasn't worrying about, but now I am because it's
yes.
suddenly become present. Um, and yeah, I think tension in the neck for me as well. So like that for me would be like, that's the sensation of worry. I've practiced it my entire life.
Yeah.
So when that sensation comes up, it's not a sensation we want to feel. So therefore, we kind of like, well, for me, maybe you're different. I like launch into the world trying to solve that problem of there not being enough money. Maybe some money hasn't come in that's meant to come in, so you want to go and chase it, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to feel that sensation of worry, so you're trying to do stuff to hide from it. But
Mm,
actually, if you can detach those two things and go, that thing that I'm blaming this feeling of worry on isn't it. The feeling of worry is just a habitual sensation. Let me not run away from that feeling of worry. Let
yeah.
me just become aware what that's like and not allow the mind to get involved to post rationalize why I'm feeling that way. And then for me, it's like, what sensation would I rather feel? Like I'd rather feel like empowered, excited, creative to go and find new solutions. So how does that feel? So like, for me, like creativity is like it's a big exhale. It's like a
Mm,
buzz of excitement of wanting to do things, but from a place of like joy and love and just I
yeah.
would just do it even if I was tired because I'm having a really fun time. Like what does that sensation feel like?
Yeah.
And how can I practice shifting from that nervous feeling, that worry sensation, to the inspired, excited version, and just get used to switching it because that's the habitual reaction I want to have. But the old one I've been practicing for 30 odd years, as you said, it's going to take some time to get rid of it.
Right, right, yeah, because we have to recreate new neural pathways in our brain and practice them again to create the neural myelin sheaths that go around the neural pathways that then strengthen that habit, and that becomes a hardwired personality trait. But yeah, unwiring the old stuff, it can take a little while, and so unfortunately as we get older, it gets more difficult to unwire ourselves, which is why it's easier to do things often, to try new things when you're younger than it is when you're older. So that's a really good one because it's not something that I think a lot of people really relate to, which is like, what is the sensation in my body? And as you were saying that, I was thinking, what is it for me? And I think mine is despondency, feeling low, feeling heavy, and wanting to run away and go, you know what, I'm just going to go into a forest and live there for the rest of my life because I don't have to deal with these problems. But or rather, that was the old me. Now it's like, oh, I'm feeling this. Okay, what can I do to shift how I'm feeling? And let it go. Whether walk in the countryside. Honestly, I think that's probably the best thing ever. Is just get out into nature, get out into the forest, get out into the park, and breathe some fresh air and do some exercise, and you feel immediately an awful lot better. So,
Mm,
so that's one really good tip about where is the sensation, what is it that's how's it feeling, and how can I shift that. Another one for me would be it's one that's been mentioned many times for anyone who's into personal development, but just counting the blessings, what's going well. I just read a quote by James Clear in his email that said, if you want to experience hell, just focus on lack. If you want to experience heaven on earth, you don't need to go anywhere, or just focus on all the things that you do have. And it's just, that's so true, right? If you focus on the stuff that you do have, and we're living in a relatively safe country, possibly you've got a good home over your head, or other, you've got shelter, you've got loved ones around, you've got friends, you've got access to the internet, all these little things that we take for granted but we forget because they're there all the time. Actually, we count all our blessings, and then we feel good because we're like, oh, I do have all these things. And when you start to feel good, then you spot more, which is great, rather than what the news teaches us every day if you listen to it, which is to say, blame all this bad stuff is happening. The world's coming to an end. AI is going to take all your jobs. No one's going to have any money. And that's programming, which is not necessary. So all the listeners, please just stop listening to news. It's programming you, and therefore it's not helping you. Focus on the stuff that you do have, focus on all the opportunities around you, focus on other people, and giving, and seeing all the stuff that the world does provide for you. And that's
so
that
good.
upward spiral of all these things that are amazing, and then you feel good, and then you attract more of it.
I think it's so true. Like I think the UK, Dave and I struggle with the UK, right? Like it's one of the reasons that we enjoy travel so much is because I think generally we have become a culture that is not very grateful for what we have. And
Mm,
I think the newspapers are in a, I mean, can't blame, like we all lap it up, but creating this culture of negativity towards each other, of lack, of there
mm,
not being enough, of the next doomsday thing that's going to happen. And it's one of the reasons that we really love spending time in South Africa, because I just feel like there's a very large divide in South Africa between the rich and the poor. And what always blows me away is that you meet people who just have nothing, compared to what we have in the UK, and they are, in our experience, grateful for what they have and giving and abundant, and it's just like a whole different energy. I would kind of feel similar things with like Thailand as well, like these different cultures where they have these different energies, where I just feel like they are more trusting and grateful for what they have. And I think for me and Dave, like trying to disconnect ourselves from that negativity
mm.
that I think is the predominant force in the UK
Yes,
definitely helped us. And
yes,
so you're right, like disconnecting from the newspapers,
yeah,
like unfollowing negative people on
yeah,
social media,
yeah.
choosing who you hang out with, who are people who are positive and light you up, rather than dragging you down and making you realize what you don't have and what's not good enough.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and everything, not just the news, because some people have switched off the news, but even the TV in the evenings. The reason why people like EastEnders and other Coronation Street and other things is because they can experience other people's discomfort.
Negativity.
And exactly, negativity at a distance is kind of safe because you feel better than they do, and that's why it's kind of quite addictive. But if you listen to someone like Mo Gaudat, who wrote the book Solve for Happy, he says every night he's watching a comedian or something like that that makes him feel happy and laugh rather than filling your mind with stuff that gets you down.
So true.
It,
Like, I will not watch something on Netflix basically that does not have the word good in the title. The Good Wife, The Good Fight, The Good Doctor, The Good Life. Like these things, I'm like, I don't. I'm reading a book at the moment called The Body Keeps the Score.
oh
Have you
yes,
read it?
yes,
Oh my God. And he was basically, I don't remember the exact statistic, but he was like, in the US, by the age of 14, the average child has seen 22,000 dramatized murders on TV. Like, that's what we're conditioning our children to see. How is that helping you to have a positive mindset about? But
yes,
that's why you've got to watch Friends. And me and Dave watch the full series of Friends every year because it makes you feel good. And if
yes.
there's a murder or anything nasty like that, I don't want to
You
watch
want to
it,
know?
because that is not helping me to see the world through a good lens. I choose to not
Yeah.
associate my mind with that because of what you're saying. It's not, that doesn't help you to see the good in the world.
There we go. It's all programming. Everything is programming. The people you spend your time with, the news, the TV you watch, the radio you listen to, the stuff you read, it's all programming you. So you may as well deliberately choose stuff that's going programming you in the right way. So yes. And another tip I think would be that it's obviously how you're feeling, but also writing and thinking about all the good stuff that's happening. Another one would be practice. An awful lot of people think, okay, right, I'm feeling good. I'm going to go and speak to someone about raising finance. Like, make sure you've practiced first, because the first time you do it, you will fumble and mess up, and it won't go quite as well. And as we know, the best, the best people in sports, they've practiced many, many times. It's exactly the same in business. We need to practice those conversations. So I had a friend, he practiced on his 6-year-old daughter. He would just practice the conversation of how it would go around raising finance, or just starting the conversation around, what do you invest in? And those sorts of things that enable you to have more success. So practice, 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 and
Yeah,
not with your best potential investor straight away. Practice with people that doesn't matter quite so much, and then go to your best investor once you feel even more confident.
that's a great suggestion. And I feel also like the state that you get yourself into, if you're going to practice it as a conversation, like something that I do before I'm like doing any talks or anything now, it's like, how do I want to feel through this talk? And I do my best to like get out of my own head. I'm like, who am I? Why am I doing this talk? Who am I trying to help with this talk? What are their problems? How can I serve them? And how can I just feel really great and inspired about the process of doing that?
Mm,
Practice
mm,
that sensation, get into that mind, like stop worrying about myself, stop worrying about the judgment of others, like let go of that, replace it with inspiration and service,
yes,
and then go into it. And that's
yes,
just a practice like anything else. So yeah, do the make yourself feel good, like get out of your own way, practice, and then go and replicate it in the real world.
yes, and focus on that other person rather than focusing on yourself. How can I help you? It's helping that
Mm.
other person. That's where business happens, is helping others solve their problems.
And any other ways that you help yourself to feel more abundant, Dom?
Good question. Any other ways? So counting the blessings we talked about. Any others? Sometimes actually writing it down too, because it's all very well thinking about it, but that's obviously quite fleeting. You can forget quite easily. When you write it down and remind yourself on a regular basis some of the big things that you've got that you're really grateful for, that can make a big difference too, because then there's a hand-brain connection too. So it really embeds, because thoughts, you have 30 to 70,000 thoughts a day, so you can forget things really easily. But the big ones, you write them down on a regular basis. Write down those affirmations, write down those goals, remind yourself what you're aiming for. So writing it down, because you create the world through your thinking, your feeling, your writing, and also the words you say. And that's why it's really important that we are deliberate with the words we use, and the things that we write down, because they create our world too.
It's really good. You're right. It's the importance of habits. Like, there's lots of different really tactical ways that you can do it. It depends whatever feels good to you in terms of whether it's writing, or just saying going for a walk, or whatever it may be. Meditation for us, like just finding something that helps you to reconnect with how much you do have already in your life, and you got to do it day after day after day. And I think I was feeling like amazing a few weeks ago. I was like, I missed a few days of meditating, and I didn't even matter. I was like in a really amazing zone. And then some stuff happened that actually just threw me off. And actually, it was good stuff. So that's new for me. Good stuff. It threw me off, and I started to just feel more negative again for no good reason. And it just shows you just have to keep up your habit. Like, even if you're feeling good, keep doing the stuff that makes you feel good, because ultimately we're emotional creatures. Food, a wine, travel, all kinds of crap can throw us off balance. So you just got to have that consistent thing that you can keep come back and keep finding your center, finding your gratitude, and therefore you can shift your whole state of being away from feeling worry to just feeling just grateful that you're in this position, that you know how to go and make a ton of money from property, and that you can help other people to go and get in on some of that without having to do the work. What an amazing proposition.
Yeah. Exactly. Those fundamentals, those foundations we've got to have in place: good sleep, good nutrition, good exercise, right mindset, right action, right habits. All of those are the key foundations. Get those right, and it's just fine tuning around the edges that will help as well.
So your key takeaway for people off the back of today, from how to take themselves from a place of financial lack to a place of financial abundance?
So awareness, raise your awareness, and then do something about it. That would be, in short. That's it. How about you?
Yeah, I guess practice that feeling of abundance, because if you don't know what abundance actually feels like, then no matter how much money you have, how much cash flow you make, how much money you can raise, you will never feel abundant. Because if you've never experienced the feeling of abundance, you literally don't know how to do it. So therefore you will always feel like you are in a state of lack. So therefore you've got to figure out what abundance feels like, and practice taking your sensations of lack and shifting them into a place of abundance, so that you realize that you can have that feeling now. You don't have to wait for a future date to be able to have that.
Exactly.
Awesome. I hope you really enjoyed listening to that conversation today. If you are wanting to really focus on raising finance more in your property business, both from a mindset perspective, but also from a practical strategy perspective, then check out our Raising Finance Formula. This is an online workshop where we go through our full Raising Finance Formula blueprint for what we've used to raise over £7 million of finance over the last 10 years, and what our clients have used to raise dozens of millions of pounds of finance too. You can get all the information at www.property-strategy.com/RFF. In the meantime, have a great week ahead, and this time next week you're going to be joined by Dom and Dave as they talk about the dreaded down valuation and what you can do to feel great about it no matter what happens. So until then, have a great week ahead.